continue reading our Genesis to Revelation study. We are on 2 Chronicles chapters 13 to 16. I've also added some verses from the New Testament to show the simplicity of the gospel and the oneness of God. And before I start, in answer to a question I had, I do a clarification thing too. When the reign of a king ends, the biography of his journey ends with he slept with his fathers, which we all know to mean he died. This corroborates what Yeshua, some of you call Jesus, said about the difference between the first and second death. In biblical terms, the first is a sleep, but we call it death. Only the second death is eternal death in biblical language. So let's give you Gospel of John chapters 11 verse 11, where it talked about Lazarus. And Yeshua said, "These things said he, and after that he saith unto them, Our friend Lazarus sleepeth, but I go that I may awake him out of his sleep. Then said his disciples, Lord, if he sleep, he shall do well. Howbeit Jesus spake of his death, but they thought that he had spoken of him taking rest in sleep. Then said Jesus unto them plainly, Lazarus is dead." So that was what we call death. Jesus called sleep, but in our language he called it death in the end. Revelations, verses that talk about the second death. We have Revelations 2:11 and also Revelations 26, which I'll read. Blessed and holy is he that hath part in the first resurrection. On such the second death hath no power, but they shall be priests of God and of Christ, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. Revelations 20:14, and death and hell were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. 21:8, but the fearful and unbelieving, and the abominable, and the murderers, and the whoremongers, and the sorcerers, and idolaters, and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. Now some people say, it doesn't say a few things, because the Bible's not going to give you the whole, every single sin. I say 613 of them. It's giving you an idea, but notice, it really is talking about those who break the commandments of God. It's not going to give you the whole thing. And this is a silly argument that people who do not keep their Sabbath days or laws of God say, it never mentions the Sabbath days. Or when it talks in Acts chapters 15, 20, I think, when it says the Gentiles only have to do 4 things: abstain from meat, abstain from things with blood, fornication, so on. So you see, Gentiles only have to do 4 things. Rubbish. It doesn't mention murder, it doesn't mention stealing, it doesn't mention murder things. It doesn't mean Gentiles can now steal and murder. So when the Bible doesn't talk about Sabbath days and things, because it is common that people already keep the Sabbath, it's not going to give you a whole list of things in a sentence. And the last verse I want to bring to your attention for all of what I've just said in context, 22:14, I've said it numerous times. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have the right to the tree of life and may enter in through the gates of the city. So that's the simplicity of it, and I shall do some more New Testament verses later on. Okay, on to 2 Chronicles chapters 13 verse 1. Abijah reigns in Judah. Now in the 18th year of King Jeroboam began Abijah to reign over Judah. He reigned 3 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name also was Micaiah, the daughter of Uriel of Jeba. And there was war between Abijah and Jeroboam. And Abijah set the battle in array with an army of valiant men of war, even 400,000 chosen men. Jeroboam also set a battle in array against him with 800,000 chosen men, with mighty men of valor. Jumping to verse 8. And now you think to withstand the kingdom of Yahweh in the hand of the sons of David, and you be a great multitude, and there with you golden calves which Jeroboam made you for gods. Have you not cast out the priests of Yahweh, the sons of Aaron, and the Levites, and have made you priests after the manner of the nations of other lands? So that whoever cometh to consecrate himself with a young bullock and 7 rams, the same may be a priest of them that are no gods. But as for us, Yahweh is our God, and we have not forsaken him, and the priests which minister unto Yahweh are the sons of Aaron, and the Levites wait upon their business. And they burnt unto Yahweh every morning and every evening burnt sacrifices and sweet incense. The showbread also set there in order upon the pure table, and the candlestick of gold with the lamps thereof, to burn every evening, for we keep the charge of Yahweh our God, but you have forsaken him. And behold, God himself is with us for our captain, and his priests with sounding trumpets cry alarm against you, O children of Israel. Fight you not against Yahweh, God of your fathers, for you shall not prosper. But Jeroboam caused an ambushment to come about behind them. So they were before Judah, and the ambushment was behind them. And when Judah looked back, and behold, the battle was before and behind, and they cried unto Yahweh, and the priests sounded the trumpets. Then the men of Judah gave a shout, and as the men of Judah shouted, it came to pass that God smote Jeroboam and all Israel before Abijah and Judah. And the children of Israel fled before Judah, and God delivered them into their hand. I just want to focus on the verses where it says that they made people priests and consecrated whoever wanted to be a priest or brought a sacrifice. The similar happens unto today. Continue the practice of any and everyone setting themselves up as a church, maybe because they have the money, or a denomination, or to be a pastor, or even a teacher of the Bible, when they do not advocate the keeping, nor teach the keeping of God's laws. Check the history of your denomination, whether it's Pentecostal, Baptist, or whoever they are. Check the history of your bishop and your pastors. Some person started a church denomination years ago, taught themselves, ordinated some other people to carry on spreading his church, and they made them pastors, and then he becomes a bishop, and so on. That is how the Pentecostal and all these churches today got started. As I said, by one person self-teaching themselves, or a few people self-teaching themselves. You can trace them back to the Protestants who broke away from the Catholic Church during the Reformation times. None went to the Jews and asked to be taught about their history, their laws and instructions from God. If we read Acts chapter 7:38, it gives the start of the church. This is he that was in the church in the wilderness. Church means congregation. With the angel who spake to him in Mount Sinai, and with our fathers, who received the lively oracles to give unto us. So we, and in Paul's time, the New Testament time, were supposed to be following what God gave the church, congregation in the wilderness. Romans chapter 3 verse 2. Basically, what advantage has the Jews? And the answer is, much every way. Chiefly because that unto them were committed the oracles of God. Some of the verses that puts the teachings of what we should be doing today in context. Isaiah chapters 49 verse 6. And he said, It is a light thing that thou shouldest be my servant, to raise up the tribes of Jacob, speaking of the Messiah, and to restore the preserved of Israel. And I will also give thee for a light to the Gentiles, that thou mayest be my salvation unto the end of the earth. So that is where the teaching should come from. Zechariah chapter 8:23. Thus saith Yahweh, the God of hosts, in those days it shall come to pass that 10 men shall take hold out of the languages of the nations, even shall take hold of the skirts of him that is a Jew, saying, We will go with you, for we have heard that God is with you. Isaiah 56 verse 2. Blessed is the man that doeth this, and the Son of Man that layeth hold on it, that keepeth the Sabbath from polluting it, and keepeth his hands from doing any evil. Neither let the son of the stranger that hath joined himself to Yahweh speak, saying, Yahweh hath utterly separated me from his people. Neither let the eunuch say, Behold, I am a dry tree. For thus saith Yahweh unto the eunuchs that keep my Sabbaths, and choose the things that please me, and take hold of my covenant. Even unto them will I give in mine house and within my walls a place and a name better than sons and of daughters. I will give them an everlasting name that shall not be cut off. Also the sons of the stranger that join themselves to Yahweh to serve him and to love the name of Yahweh, to be his servants. Everyone that keepeth the Sabbath from polluting it, and taketh hold of my covenant, even them will I bring to my holy mountain, and make them joyful in my house of prayer. Their burnt offerings and their sacrifices shall be accepted upon my altar, for my house shall be called an house of prayer for all people. Yahweh God which gathereth the outcasts of Israel saith, Yet will I gather others to him, besides those that are gathered unto him. Revelations chapters 18 verse 4. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, for you, that you be not partakers of her sins, and that you receive not of her plagues. So those who have learned the commandments of God and what it should be done, should come out of the denominations that are not keeping them. Now the purpose of these daily studies, reading from Genesis to Revelations, is for you to see for yourself what the Bible actually teaches and compare it to the false inherited teachings of common Christianity, especially in respect of grace, faith, and belief in Jesus in relation to law keeping. Romans chapter 3 verse 31. Do we then make void the law through faith? God forbid. Yea, we establish the law. There you go. So faith does not mean you do not keep the law. You build it up, you establish it. Romans 6:50. What then? Shall we sin? We know sin is transgression of the law. Because we are not under the law but under grace? God forbid. So grace doesn't mean you do not keep the God's law. Galatians 2:17. But if while we seek to be justified by Christ, we ourselves are also found sinners, meaning breaking God's law, is therefore Christ the minister of sin? God forbid. So again, when the Bible talks about belief in Jesus, belief in him does not mean you do not keep his laws. And for those who think that God has cast away Israel and now turn to Christians, Romans 11 verse 1. I say then, have God cast away his people? God forbid. For I am also an Israelite of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. So, summary, grace, faith, belief does not excuse us from keeping the law. Exodus chapter 12 verse 49. One law shall be to him that is homeborn, and unto the stranger that sojourneth among you. Numbers 15:6. One law and one manner shall be for you, and for the stranger that sojourneth with you. Romans 2:9. Tribulation and anguish upon every soul of man that doeth evil, of the Jew first, and also unto the Gentile, in other nations. Romans 2:10. But glory, honour, and peace to every man that worketh good, to the Jew first, and also to the Gentile. 1 Corinthians 12:13, last one. For by one Spirit are we all baptized into one body, whether we be Jews or Gentiles, whether we be bond or free, and have been all made to drink of one Spirit. Galatians 3:28. There is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither bond nor free, there is neither male nor female, for you are all one in Yeshua. Okay, back to 2 Chronicles, chapters 14, verse 1. Asa reigns in Judah. And so Abijah slept with his fathers, and they buried him in the city of David, and Asa his son reigned in his stead. In his days the land was quiet 10 years, and Asa did that which was good and right in the eyes of Yahweh his God. For he took away all the because he took away the altars of the strange gods and the high places, and break down the images and cut down the groves, and commanded Judah to seek Yahweh, God of their fathers, and to do the law and the commandment. Also he took away out of all the cities of Judah the high places and images, and the kingdom was quiet before him. And he built the fenced cities in Judah, for the land had rest, and he had no war. He had no war in those days, because Yahweh had given him rest. Therefore he said unto Judah, Let us build these cities, and make about them walls and tower gates and bars, while the land is yet before us. Because we have sought Yahweh our God, we have sought him, and he hath given us rest on every side. So they built and prospered. Jump to verse 11. And Asa cried unto Yahweh his God, and said, Yahweh, it is nothing with thee to help, whether with many or with them that have no power. Help us, O Yahweh our God, for we rest on thee, and in thy name we go against this multitude. O Yahweh, thou art our God, let not man prevail against thee. So Yahweh smote the Ethiopians before Asa and before Judah, and the Ethiopians fled. So God killed the Ethiopians, showing it is not about color. Because I know some people claim that Israel were black, but here we have, if that is the case, if Ethiopians are black, they also say, and yet God destroyed them. Jumping on to chapters 15, this is Asa's religious reforms. And the Spirit of God came upon Azariah, the son of Oded, and he went out to meet Asa, and said unto him, Hear you, me, Asa, and all Judah and Benjamin. Yahweh is with you, while you be with him. And if you seek him, he will be found of you. But if you forsake him, he will forsake you. Now, for a long season Israel hath been without the true God, without a teaching priest, and without law. But when they in their trouble did turn unto Yahweh God of Israel, and sought him, he was found of them. Jump into verse 8. And when Asa heard these words and the prophecy of Oded the prophet, he took courage and put away the abominable idols out of all the land of Judah and Benjamin, and out of the cities which he had taken from Mount Ephraim. And he renewed the altar of Yahweh that was before the porch of Yahweh. And he gathered all of Judah and Benjamin, and the strangers with them out of Ephraim and Manasseh, and out of Simeon. For they fell to him out of Israel in abundance, when they saw that Yahweh, his God, was with him. Jump into verse 16. And also concerning Maacah, the mother of Asa, the king, he removed her from being queen, because she had made an idol in a grove, and Asa cut down her idol, and stamped it, and burnt it at the brook Kidron. But the high places were not taken away out of Israel. Nevertheless, the heart of Asa was perfect all his days. Jumping to verse. So note, high places is to do with false God worship. That is the meaning of fornication, and the only reason for putting away his wife, Yeshua says. Now, to show you high places to do with false God, you can see it in the context. You read the whole chapter, you should be clear from the context. However, read 2 Chronicles chapters 21:11. This says, Moreover, he made high places in the mountains of Judah, and caused the inhabitants of Jerusalem to commit fornication, and compelled Judah thereto. So we see fornication, high places, goes together, false God worship. The same accusation leveled against Jezebel in Revelation chapters 2 verse 20, which says, Notwithstanding I have a few things against thee, because thou sufferest the woman Jezebel, which calleth herself a prophetess, to teach and to seduce my servants to commit fornication and to eat things sacrificed unto idols. If we know the story about Ahab and Jezebel, they were doing false God worship. Nothing to do with sex before marriage. So when we look at Matthew chapters 5:32, and Yeshua's use of the word fornication, which says, "But I say unto you that whosoever shall put away his wife, saving for," meaning except for, "the cause of fornication, causeth her to commit adultery, and whosoever shall marry her that is divorced committeth adultery." So it is rubbish what people teach today. Everyone's been thinking that fornication in Matthew 5:32, with some Bibles, translations have changed to sexual morality. It's rubbish to make it think that the number one sin is sex before marriage. God does not put sex before marriage above the sin of false God worship. And that is the only one reason why Yeshua says to put your wife away. If Solomon had done that, he may not have fallen from his pedestal.
Now I'll just show you the King James's version of Revelations 2:18, because I know some of you may look it up in your Bibles, which has sexual morality, and think no, I've got it wrong. It's your Bible that has it wrong, these new translations. 2:18, I think. Oh, sorry, 2:20. Notwithstanding, I have a few things against thee, because thou hast suffered that woman Jezebel, caused a prophetess to teach and seduce my servants to commit fornication. And I said, you read the story of Ahab and Jezebel, and you know they did false God worship. That's why Elisha had the call fire down from heaven and had this duel with their prophets and so forth. Okay, so let's go back to our teaching.
So I do hope that, at least in some of you, this inherited belief that sex before marriage is what fornication is about, the meaning of fornication, is slowly being dispelled out of your head. Okay, getting back to 2 Chronicles, reading from chapter 16, verse 1. Asa's last years. In the 6th and 30th year of the reign of Asa, Baasa, king of Israel, came up against Judah and built Ramah, to the intent that he might let none go out or come into Asa, king of Judah. Then Asa brought out silver and gold out of the treasures of the house of Yahweh and out of the king's house, and sent to Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, that dwelt at Damascus, saying, "There is a league between me and thee, as there was between my father and thy father. Behold, I have sent thee silver and gold. Go and break thy league with Baasa, king of Israel, that he may depart from me." And Ben-Hadad hearkened unto King Asa, and sent the captains of his armies against the cities of Israel. And they smote Leon, and Dan, and Abel-maim, and all the store cities of Naphtali. Jumping to verse 7. And at that time Hanani the seer came to Asa, king of Judah, and said unto him, "Because thou hast relied on the king of Syria, and not relied on Yahweh thy God, therefore is the host of the king of Syria escaped out of thine hand. Were not the Ethiopians and the Lubims a huge host, with very many chariots and horsemen? Yet because thou didst rely on Yahweh, he delivered them into thy hand. For the eyes of Yahweh run to and fro throughout the whole world, to show himself strong in the behalf of them whose heart is perfect towards him. Herein thou hast done foolishly. Therefore from henceforth thou shalt have wars." The message in the above chapters should be clear. Obey and keep God's laws, and he will be your refuge, your protector, etc., even in times of apparent dismay. That is his attributes. The I am your protector, I am your provider, I am your salvation. They are his numerous, is the title of it, it's the term of his numerous attributes. It is not his name. I am is not a name. I am is our list of attributes. So how can doing the very thing that saved Asa, keeping God's commandments and having a reformation in the land, now be the thing not to do today? In other words, these self-appointed denomination leaders, creations, have said, "Oh, you don't have to keep God's commandments, you don't have to keep his holy days, the Sabbaths, because we're now under grace, under faith, as long as you believe. When we read, these are the very things that saved Asa, and when he departed from them, is the very things that brought his downfall. Shalom, till tomorrow, God willing.